This is Hertz new MPBX 250S2. It contains Hertz new shallow mount MPS 250. It's in the Mille Pro line, hence the name MPS Mille Pro Sub, MPBX Mille Pro Box. So this is a prefabricated enclosure. They've kind of put the package together so that when you're building a system, you can put the box in and away you go. It's not a what I would consider a drop fit product. It's a little further on than that. It's 500 quid. Same amount of power handling. It's 500 watts RMS. 82.5 dB sensitive, so you'll have to give it a bit of power to get it going, but it'll love that. All its numbers stack up. I'll put them in a link below so you can see. But what we want to really do is get some ears on it. So today we're going to unbox this. I'll show you how it comes out. I'll explain a couple of things, and then we're going to put it in our Mark 7. Our Mark 7's built as a test bed. Really, everything's passive, so we can change passive subwoofer boxes. We can kind of do what we want with it, change out three-ways and things like that. So yeah, let's get amongst that. Let's get this open. I'll show you it coming apart, and in the car, and we'll have a listen. So yeah, first things first. This is it's heavy. It's not like it's probably about the same as, say, the 10-inch Audison Active box, which of course has an amplifier inside there as well, a fast plug, things like that. It's similar size to that box, maybe slightly larger, but yeah, quite heavy. Packed well, foam and stuff, keeping it in place. Now, like I say, I've no experience with it, so I've not heard it. I'll have to come to that today. But here we go. Oh yeah, so it's not the packaging that's heavy, it's the actual box itself. This is substantially heavier than say the Audison 10, the DS2, so the passive box, and the AS2, so it's very similar enclosure. I know that those drivers, they're not like the Audison AP10 or anything like that. They were specifically made to work with them enclosures, so they know what they're doing, and there'll be reasons behind why one is much heavier and one is lighter than the other. The woofer's far more substantial as well. So yeah, that is it's upside down. That's a neat looking package. Side note, if you've dealt with Audison or Hertz boxes before, you'll know that these little nipples, little things that go inside the threaded sections for the feet, are the biggest pain in the arse you ever dealt with. If you manage to get them out, all four of them successfully, give yourself a pat on the back. Most of them snap off, then you've got to drill them out. But they do a good job. They protect the thread from inside there. If you're going to run it up, face up, they actually look quite nice as well, considering it is a functional element. In this box here, there should be some feet. If they've kept the design the same, I don't see why they would have changed that. Yeah, okay, so the same design. Notes in there as well. The same design, but just larger. So slightly larger. What this does, it's staggeringly grippy. Velcro on most OEM carpets. Mercedes OEM carpet's a little bit tricky, but most stuff that's just grips like crazy too and doesn't move around. That foot sits on the edge like that. It doesn't sit perfectly flush at the moment because I haven't taken this out, but that sits on there, boom, 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 all the way around, and that gives you a load area, so that allows the subwoofer to play facing down. I prefer all of these designs of boxes facing down. I prefer most subwoofers to be loaded, to be fair. So yeah, it just gives you a natural gain sort of right down at the bottom, So yeah, that's for loading, or you can run it. Oh, and when you do load it, you do have the logo on the back. If you don't want it there, really easy to route a panel to match this and carpet it, do what you want. Makes it slightly less discreet, but if you're into it, it's not a dreadful logo, so it's quite smart. This swage line all the way around, I'm a bit of a fan of. I'd like to know its construction I've not seen it sort of cut down, but this does feel like a pressed panel. It doesn't feel like just a routed bull nose to give it any sort of feature. It does feel like that's a separate piece of wood. This is rock solid, really good. Not the sort of build you get from a prefab enclosure, really. You've got your standard sort of push terminal, and then you've got this 4-pin sort of plug here, so you can, if you're constantly taking your cables in and out of your car, or constantly removing your subwoofer, I'm always chopping and changing mine, and my bike's in my car quite a lot, and I do take my subwoofer out. To have a clip-in plug is quite nice, because it means there's no real degradation of the cables inside the car. So you're not going to, after 6 months of taking it in and out, you're not going to be dealing with frayed cables. Mine at the moment does have bare ends because of the different enclosures that I fit, throughout. I've probably had 10 different enclosures in there, and it's only really been finished for about 6 months. I'll say finished. Is it ever finished? Yeah, so good idea that, to have a separate plug as well. They're raving about this subwoofer, Hertz. I hear a lot about it. I hear a lot about its power handling, a lot about its delivery. I hear a lot of comparisons with other brands. I don't know where it will sit in comparison to, say, something in JL's line, which would be our typical competition for it. A W6 might be a little bit too far, a W3 might be a little bit too low. There's a big gap between those two subwoofers. This might sit perfectly in the middle, which would be great. I'm currently using a 10W6, so it's a tough act to follow. That's in about 0.8 of a cubic foot. This box is 0.6 cubic foot, so as you buy it, that's it. You can't really change it. It's wadded and stuff, so it'll give you that. It will slow things down, which makes the enclosure seem a little bit larger, or sound a little bit larger. You've got this as well. It's just on there. Take it off if you want. Leave it on. I leave most of mine on. That's the plug I'm talking about. With you can plug that straight into the subwoofer. Link these up how you see fit in your car. Tool. Now, I don't know if they've included this tool specifically because of how difficult these things are to get off. Should we do a live test on whether I can remove this quickly and safely with this tool? Let's do it. Now that's never happened, ever. I don't know if they've changed something or what. So yeah, they've either changed something about the design, thank you, or this is just the best thing that's ever been invented. I don't think it is, because we used flat blades, pries, panel tools with sort of forks on them so you can actually get to both sides, but they've come out far better than the others, so it seems that issue is solved, thank goodness. I think it's time we put it in the car, have a little listen to it, compare it to what we've taken out, and I'll let you know how I feel about it in a minute. So, it's just me and you now in here. What I'm going to do, first things first, I'm going to test its sort of relative output in comparison to the W6 that came out. Again, not the most fair yardstick, I suppose, cost considered, but that should give me a good sort of starting point. Subs for me are musical things, they've got to be musical. We all know that most subwoofers can deliver bass, right, at least in some shape or form. If they don't, get rid of them. Bass, lower bass, not crazy low bass, but say a sort of 30 to 40 hertz realm is relatively simple for a subwoofer to do. What isn't simple for it to do is for it to play music, is for it to gel with the rest of the system, to be quick enough, So I'm gonna have a little listen for that. It's brand new, so it's a bit of a tricky, I might have to give it a little bit more time, but let's see. This can be my initial impression, Onwards. I've also got my software attached to the system so that I can chop or change anything that I might need to. think? The Hertz Mille Pro MPBX 250 S2. Not a mouthful at all. Had to take my glasses out of my glasses holder because they were buzzing their head off. That thing can slam. It can really get down. Comparing the two, like I said, it's not necessarily a fair test, the W6. It's higher up the line. A fair bit higher up the line, you know. It loses out on speed slightly. W6 is quicker. The W6, the 10 W6 is a world-renowned SQ subwoofer. This Hertz, you know, shallow mount subwoofer is brand new. Okay, so it needs a fair bit more running in. I imagine that its pace will quicken up as, you know, as we wear the driver in. But to get to the W6 heights, you know, it's a lot to ask at that price point. So treating it as an independent subwoofer enclosure, as a sort of standalone unit at £500, it's way beyond its price point in my opinion. It really digs deep. I had to lean on it a little bit more, so I had to go into my tuning software and raise my sub level slightly. The equivalent sort of output, I suppose, between it and the 10W6 that was in the boot was probably about 1.5 dB down with the Mille driver, so I had to notch that up slightly. In terms of output, I could give it just stacks and it dealt with it, you know, it dealt with it really well. Clean as well. No box sound from what I can hear. I can't hear any sort of ringing from the box. I can't hear anything sort of flapping or moving, you know. It's a rock solid box build, you know. So yeah, it's a good, clean, low playing subwoofer for 500 quid that's already in a box. Now, things that you don't consider, things that you might not consider, you might watch this video and think, right, oh, I'm looking for a subwoofer, haven't considered anything, and I'm just looking for a subwoofer. You need to consider the cost of the driver. So the driver's a £400 driver, okay? If you want to go for the prefab enclosure and you have an installer build you an enclosure, our enclosures, I think custom enclosures start from around 680. They go up into the £7,000 or £8,000 mark. You know, it's a huge cost for some custom sub boxes, and for relatively straightforward sub boxes, you know, I suppose we can do one within a few hours that will cost a few hundred quid, but we don't tend to get involved in that sort of work. We always kind of put a lot of effort into the finishing down of our boxes and the strength of them, so it takes a fair while to build. You need to factor that in, installation time, everything like that, you know. Whereas with a box like this that you can purchase as a singular thing, you can put it in yourself, you can ignore all of that, you know, everything that goes with spec-ing a subwoofer with a custom box. There's a reason, I suppose, in my car, you know, I'm a car audio pro, you would assume that I would have a completely bespoke box dedicated to a particular subwoofer, and that isn't the case with me. I've pretty much always got some form of prefab subwoofer enclosure with a different subwoofer in it. The enclosure will be dedicated to that driver and its parameters, but they are boxes that I can take in and take out, and that's how I prefer my systems. You know, I prefer to be able to do a rapid changeover, I suppose, because of the job that I'm in. But for other people, you might want to take that out when the dog's in there, you might want to take it out when you're taking the kids out, you know, anything, or when you're putting your bike in your car, you know, you want to just take it out. So that all needs to be considered when buying a subwoofer or installing a subwoofer, in my opinion. You make it permanent, it is there, and there's nothing really much you can do about it other than going many steps back down the installation path. Whereas prefab, in it goes, out it goes. 500 quid prefab box, it's got a Mille Pro subwoofer in there. If anything with Hertz Mille written on it, doesn't mess around, you know, they're a good product. So yeah, it's in the ring for us. You know, we use some passive boxes. We use passive boxes from various different brands, but this one's just it's just come in near the top, and it's 500 quid. So yeah, anyway, hopefully that wraps that up, and I haven't rambled on too much. But that's the new Hertz MPBX 250 S2. All right, and the raw driver is the MP S250, not S2, I don't think. Anyway, I'm Carl, this is Studio In Car. This has been a slightly in-depth product overview. Tell me what you think, because we've got more of these planned, and we'll go in-depth with other things, or if you leave a comment for something that you want to see, then we'll survey that, see if it's worthwhile, and if it is, we'll put it out. All right, take it easy. This is Hertz new MPBX S2 250. It contains Hertz new sort of shallow mount. Oh, fucking hell. MPBX 250 S2. Come on, just a 10-inch slap. Had to take my glasses out, my glasses holder, because they were